the Indian law enforcement counterparts to discuss violent extremists occurring in Canada and India and present evidence pertaining to agents of the Government of India's involvement in serious criminal activity here in Canada. Unfortunately, these attempts were unsuccessful. Therefore, Deputy Commissioner met with officials of the Government of India alongside with the National Security Intelligence Advisor and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs over the weekend. Through our National Task Force and other investigative efforts, the RCMP has obtained evidence that demonstrates 4 very serious issues. 1, violent extremists impacting both countries. 2, links tying agents of the Government of India to homicides and violent acts. 3, the use of organized crime to create perception of unsafe environment targeting the South Asian community in Canada. And the 4th, interference in democratic processes. Investigations have revealed that Indian diplomats and consular officials based in Canada leveraged their official position to engage in clandestine activities, such as collecting information for the Government of India, either directly or through their agents, and other individuals who acted voluntarily or through coercion. Evidence also shows that a wide variety of entities in Canada and abroad have been used by agents of the Government of India to collect information. Some of these individuals and businesses were coerced and threatened into working with the Government of India. The information collected by the Government of India is then used to target members of the South Asian community. This evidence was presented directly to the Government of India officials, urging their cooperation in stemming the violence and requesting our law enforcement agencies work together to address this issue. The RCMP is hoping to address these threats through our relationship with the Government of India and the National Investigation Agency, with the end goal of strengthening the safety and security of the Canadian public and South Asian community. The safety and security of our citizens, regardless of their background or belief, remains a top priority for the RCMP, and we will not tolerate any form of intimidation, harassment, or harmful targeting of communities of individuals in Canada. We are seeking the public's assistance in reporting incidents of foreign interference by the Government of India. Anyone who feels threatened online or in person should report the incidents to the local police. If someone is in immediate danger, please call 911. Individuals can also report to the RCMP National Security Information Network by calling 1-800-420-5805. We recognize the concern and fear people might be feeling when seeing this news, and we recognize that South Asians are victims of these activities we're investigating. We want to assure all Canadians that their safety and security is at the forefront of everything we do, and we urge the public and South Asian community to remain calm and give law enforcement and Canadian officials time to continue discussions. While the RCMP does not generally comment on investigative matters to preserve operation integrity, we will keep the public updated as things develop. Thank you. Je vais maintenant passer en français. Des circonstances extraordinaires nous obligent à divulguer ce que nous avons découvert dans le cadre de multitudes d'enquêtes en cours sur l'implication d'agents du gouvernement de l'Inde dans des activités criminelles graves au Canada. Nous ne divulguons habituellement pas publiquement des informations sur ces enquêtes en cours afin de préserver l'intégrité de ces dernières. Cependant, nous estimons qu'il est nécessaire de le faire dans ce cas-ci en raison de la menace importante pour la sécurité publique au Canada. Au cours des dernières années, et plus récemment, les organismes d'application de la loi au Canada, y compris la GRC, ont mené avec succès des enquêtes et porté des accusations contre un nombre important de personnes en raison de leur participation directe à des homicides, à des extorsions et d'autres actes criminels de violence. De plus, des agents des forces de l'ordre ont dû exercer leur devoir de mise en garde auprès de membres de la population sud-asiatique, notamment des membres du mouvement pro-Khalistan, car plus d'une douzaine de menaces crédibles et imminentes pesaient contre leur vie de ces derniers. Par conséquent, en février 2024, la GRC a créé une équipe multidisciplinaire pour enquêter et coordonner les efforts de la lutte contre cette menace. L'équipe a recueilli une quantité importante d'informations sur l'ampleur et la portée des activités criminelles orchestrées par des agents du gouvernement de l'Inde et sur la menace qui en découle pour la sécurité des Canadiens et Canadiennes et des personnes vivant au Canada. Malgré les mesures prises par les organismes d'application de la loi, les méfaits se poursuivent et constituent une menace importante pour notre sécurité publique. Nous sommes arrivés à un point où nous estimons qu'il est impératif de confronter le gouvernement de l'Inde et d'informer la population de certaines découvertes très sérieuses que nous avons faites dans le cadre de nos enquêtes. Il existe au Canada une menace d'extrémisme violent contre laquelle le Canada et l'Inde ont lutté au fil des années. Cependant, ces menaces nuisent à la collaboration entre le Canada et l'Inde. Plus tôt cette semaine, le sous-commissaire de la police fédérale de la GRC a tenté de rencontrer ses homologues indiens des organismes d'application de la loi pour discuter de l'extrémisme violent au Canada et en Inde et leur présenter des éléments de preuve de l'implication d'agents du gouvernement indien dans des graves activités criminelles. Ces tentatives n'ayant pas abouti, le sous-commissaire a rencontré au cours de la fin de semaine des représentants du gouvernement indien en compagnie de la conseillère de la Sécurité nationale et au renseignement et du sous-ministre des Affaires étrangères. Notre groupe de travail national et diverses enquêtes ont permis à la GRC d'obtenir des éléments de preuve démontrant l'existence de 4 problèmes très graves. Le premier, l'extrémisme violent qui touche les 2 pays. Le deuxième, l'existence de liens entre des agents du gouvernement de l'Inde et des homicides et des actes de violence. Le troisième, le recours au crime organisé pour créer une perception d'un environnement non sécuritaire ciblant la communauté sud-asiatique au Canada. Et le quatrième, l'ingérence dans le processus démocratique. Les enquêtes ont révélé que les diplomates et des agents consulaires indiens établis au Canada ont tiré parti de leur position officielle pour se livrer à des activités clandestines telles la collecte de renseignements pour le gouvernement indien, soit directement, soit grâce à des intermédiaires ainsi que d'autres personnes qui ont agi de leur plein gré ou sous la contrainte. Des éléments de preuve montrent également qu'une grande quantité d'entités au Canada et à l'étranger ont été utilisées par des agents du gouvernement de l'Inde pour recueillir des renseignements. Ces entités sont des personnes et des entreprises qui ont été de l'Inde. Les renseignements recueillis pour le gouvernement indien sont ensuite utilisés pour cibler les membres de la communauté sud-asiatique. Nous avons présenté ces éléments de preuve directement aux représentants du gouvernement de l'Inde. Nous les avons incités à coopérer pour enrayer la violence et demander que nos organismes d'application de la loi travaillent de concert pour régler la situation. La GRC espère pour signaler tout incident d'ingérence étrangère pour le gouvernement indien. Toute personne qui se sent menacée en ligne ou en personne doit signaler l'incident à son service de police local. Si une personne se trouve en danger immédiat, s'il vous plaît, appelez le 911. Vous pouvez également communiquer avec un réseau Info Sécurité nationale de la GRC au numéro 1-800-420-5805. Nous reconnaissons que cette nouvelle puisse être source de peur et d'inquiétude. Nous sommes conscients que les Asiatiques du Sud sont victimes des activités sur lesquelles nous enquêtons. Nous tenons à faire savoir à l'ensemble des Canadiens que leur sécurité est au cœur de tout ce que nous faisons. Nous invitons les membres du public et des communautés d'Asie du Sud à rester calmes et laisser les organismes d'application de la loi et aux représentants du Canada le temps nécessaire pour poursuivre nos discussions. Bien que la GRC ne commande généralement pas les questions d'enquête pour préserver l'intégrité opérationnelle, nous tiendrons le public au courant de l'évolution de la situation. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Commissioner Hem. Je vous remercie, Commissaire Duheme. We will now take your questions. We'll first take questions from the room and then we'll go to participants online. Nous allons maintenant répondre à vos questions. Nous allons prendre les questions dans la salle, premièrement, et puis ensuite les participants en ligne. If I could ask that you ask one question and one follow-up so that we can get to as many questions as we can in the time we have available. When asking your question, please begin by saying your name and the media organization you represent. Si vous voulez poser une question, je vous invite à rendre à l'un des microphones dans la salle. Je vous demanderai de vous limiter à une question et une question complémentaire afin que nous puissions répondre à autant de questions que possible dans le temps imparti. Au moment de vous poser votre question, vous voulez commencer par indiquer votre nom et l'organe médiatique que vous représentez. We'll start on this side of the room, please.
Guy Kendall from CBC Ottawa. Is this picking up?
It's not picking up here, but I can hear you loud and clear. I'm not quite sure about the other people.
Guy Campbell from CBC Ottawa. The Canadian government indicates that it has expelled some Indian diplomats and officials from our country. When it comes to your investigation, is the RCMP linking the High Commissioner with the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar or to other killings, either on Canadian soil or in India?
So on the, I just want to be mindful that we've mentioned this in the past. There's a distinct investigation on the Nijjar case, and there's another distinction in the investigation on the national security side to see the connections with the government of India. So I'm not going to make any comments on the Nijjar side. I'll ask Bridget to see if she can add any comments to that.
Yeah, if I may add, we're not here to speak specifically about the Nijjar homicide, but we want to draw your attention and inform the public of the breadth of criminal activity that is occurring in Canada, which is a grave concern to our public safety. And what I can tell you, though, as a result of those investigations, we have uncovered connections to the government of India.
Speaking of the breadth of that alleged activity, can you be any more precise about how many Indian diplomats are implicated in the kind of activity you're detailing here today?
I will limit the comments to several because you have to understand there's still some ongoing investigations.
Thank you. We'll go to the other microphone, please.
Hi, Commissioner. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. Can you outline when the RCMP and you first became aware of these issues and detail how serious a threat you believe it is to national security?
Well, and I'll ask Bridget to chime in on when all this started, but the fact that we've had an individual, our Deputy Commissioner of Federal Policing, travel to Singapore with the NSIA and Deputy Minister of Government Affairs Canada to take part in a discussion with the government official. We take this very seriously, and this is why we're here today, to inform the Canadian population of what we're seeing and that we're very supportive and we're doing everything we can. And as to when these threats started appearing, whatnot, I'll let Bridget expand on that. But I do want to emphasize the collective effort by law enforcement across the country to address this. You've heard in my opening remarks that we've had a hub. We had a hub where the information would come in through everything that's going on across the country, but there's been some tremendous work across the country to address this.
Yeah, this is a result of years of investigations, but more recently, because we've seen an escalation in that threat activity, which, as the commissioner indicated, homicides, extortions, and other acts of violence, we feel compelled today to come in front of you and tell you the activities that have been occurring in Canada, and we want to assure the public that we take it seriously, and our top priority is Canada's public safety and security.
Can you just outline why, at this point in time, Indian diplomats haven't been charged? Is there issues with diplomatic community? And just broadly, Commissioner, you mentioned the idea that there was a conversation with the Indians. Can you discuss what they said, or what the reaction back to you was, or to the RCMP was when that information was put forward?
Yeah, I'm going to, because out of respect to the conversations that took place, it was Deputy Commissioner Flynn that had those conversations. So I'll keep that private that he had. I'll invite Bridget there to make additional comments to your question.
In general, national security investigations are complex and take some time. I will say that there are limitations in our Canadian judicial systems as far as what actions law enforcement can take in regards to Indian diplomats and consular officials.
We'll go to our next question, please.
Bonjour, Rebecca Kwan de Radio-Canada. Vous avez parlé de plusieurs événements criminels qui mettent en danger la sécurité du public. Est-ce qu'on parle d'événements qui sont liés ou d'événements qui sont isolés?
Je vous dirais que plusieurs éléments que j'ai parlé, harcèlement, extorsion, homicide, puisqu'il y a plusieurs personnes qui ont été accusées, une dizaine, je crois, à travers le pays, je vais m'abstenir de tout commentaire parce que ces dossiers-là sont encore sous enquête ou devant les tribunaux.
Et justement, est-ce que vous enquêtez toujours sur d'autres meurtres liés à ces événements-là?
Il y a une coordination qui se fait avec les polices de juridiction parce qu'il faut comprendre que tous les événements qui ont eu lieu, autant au niveau des homicides, l'harcèlement, l'extorsion, n'ont pas nécessairement n'ont pas pris place dans la juridiction de la GRC, mais la GRC a créé une équipe pour assurer une coordination pour s'assurer, parce que ça peut arriver à l'occasion que si une agence policière travaille sur un dossier, un autre travaille sur un autre dossier, des fois, on n'est pas préoccupé s'il y a un lien. Et la GRC est venue créer une équipe afin d'établir, voir s'il y a des liens entre un événement et l'autre.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Rebecca.
Nous allons maintenant prendre des questions de ceux qui se joignent par MS Teams. We'll now move to questions from our MS Teams participants. So if I could ask that you use the raise hand function in MS Teams and we will call upon you. Si vous souhaitez poser une question, vous voulez utiliser la fonction de main levée dans MS Teams. Again, if I could ask for one question and one follow-up. Encore, nous vous demandons de vous limiter à une question et une question complémentaire. We'll begin with Marika Walsh, please.
Hi there. Thanks for taking our questions. Can you please clarify specifically, I believe you just said in French about a dozen people are implicated. Are you saying a dozen Indian agents are implicated? And can you be more specific on the numbers? You're talking about extortions and homicides in the plural. How many homicides are connected to Indian agents? How many extortions? And how many police investigations are currently open that are linked to Indian agents?
Okay, so thanks for your question. And I did say a dozen. It could be give or take a couple minus, and Bridget might have the exact numbers. But I didn't infer that all of them are related to agents. And again, Bridget can add a little bit more information, but be mindful that the charges that have been laid to all these individuals across the country are still before the courts. So we'll be very limited in what we can provide as information. Bridget?
Just to add to that, in regards to homicide, there's approximately 8 individuals that have been arrested and charged in relation to homicides. In relation to extortions, there's at least 22 individuals that have been arrested and charged. Some of these have connections to the government of India.
Thank you. Follow-up, Marika?
Yeah, I do. I'm just, that's the number of individuals charged, but how many investigations are there? I'm asking this because you're leveling very serious allegations without any specificity. I understand you're limited in what you can say, but you are warning the Canadian public of a public safety threat without telling them what they should be warned about, without saying what the issue is. So what is the public safety threat currently to Canadians? And specifically, how many investigations are open right now that are linked to agents of the government of India?
So I'll start, Marika, and as I mentioned earlier, what we're seeing is intimidation, harassment, extortion, coercion, any way or form that they feel threatened to obtain information for the government of India or through the agent. That's where we're asking the people to come forward and assist the police of jurisdiction with the investigations. As far as investigations, I will limit it to, there's numerous investigations going on, led by multiple police agencies across the country. And I think the important thing here to characterize is that we are all working together across the country to make sure that we are working from the same information, making sure that we could hold people account, being agents of the government of India, being local individuals or organized crime groups.
We'll go next to Laura Osmond, please.
Canadian Press. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear.
Wonderful. I'm wondering, first of all, if you can start by telling us whether all the confidential information related to this has been passed on to Marjorie Og and her foreign interference inquiry so that she can make recommendations on this.
What I can say for that is we've had, as you can appreciate, that because there's ongoing investigations and the public forum in which the inquiry is being held, it would not be appropriate for us to share information that could put at jeopardy the investigation or any criminal charges.
Follow up, Laura?
Following up on Marika's question, when it comes to accountability for some of these folks, can you help me explain to people what avenues you have to hold India and Indian agent and officials accountable when it comes to more than just the bit players who are on the ground? What are the challenges, and what avenues do you have available to actually mete out that accountability that you talk about?
So there's a number of law enforcement actions that we can take. Charges or criminal prosecutions is an option, but it's not necessarily the best option. That's why, for example, we created this national task force, which is comprised of, it's a multidisciplinary team comprised of a number of federal government agencies, which has a focus on investigating and prosecuting, for example, Khalistani violent extremism, and also foreign interference by agents of the government of India. Now, I mentioned investigations and prosecutions. That is an option, but it is a whole of government issue. It's a whole of government strategy, and therefore we could apply other disruptive measures to mitigate the threat. The objective here is Canada's public safety, and therefore sometimes prosecutions and charges are not the best option. Our objective is to disrupt the networks and to stop the violence in our country.
Thank you. We'll go next to Justin, please.
There, Commissioner. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, I think you can. So Justin Ling, freelance. I'm wondering if you can tell me what the nexus might be to similar plots, either in the US, the UK, or further abroad. We know when these charges were first levied, there was a lot of speculation that this network may have ties to violence or extortion in other countries. Have you found that connection? Have you talked to your allies in the Five Eyes and elsewhere? And do you envision more collaboration between other intelligence services and this investigation?
Thanks, Justin, and I'll let Bridget respond, because we've had meetings with our FBI colleagues on this matter, and I'll let Bridget to provide you just a summary or maybe highlights of some of the commonalities.
Yeah, so foreign interference is a global issue, and we work and collaborate, and we have strong relationships with our Five Eyes partners to combat this threat. In relation to this matter specifically, as the Commissioner said, we have met with our counterparts, we have shared information. There are some connections with threats in other countries. I'll remind you of the November 2023 US indictment against Nikhil Gupta, which indicates that there was also a plot to kill individuals in Canada.
Justin, if I can add what we're seeing here, I doubt it very much if they have a different way of operating in different countries. I think the operation that they conduct in foreign countries is probably similar around the world.
Follow up, Justin?
Yeah, just as a follow-up, I hear you when you say that some of this may not result in criminal proceedings. I know obviously have been charges laid. Some of this may wind up in the foreign interference inquiry. But I'm wondering if you can envision how kind of the totality of this evidence will be eventually made public, if it will be at all. You referenced the Gupta indictment from the FBI that contains enormous detail about how these networks operate and what the threat looks like to that community in the US. That level of transparency hasn't happened here in Canada. Do you envision how that might be made public at some point, or will we just have to wait for the court proceedings to go ahead?
Well, yeah, thanks, Justin. And the level of transparency, I think one has to appreciate that the way the US does it through an indictment, they actually provide all the information. Our judicial process is not set up that way. Individuals, when they're charged, have a right to a free trial, and the disclosure process occurs once the charges are laid and disclosures are made before the courts, and that's when the information becomes accessible. Because you'd question if you reverse it in our judicial system right now, what kind of a fair process would an accused get if we disclose all the information before the charge is laid? It's two different judicial processes that exist in two different countries. Bridget, did you want to add anything? Okay.
I agree with that.
Thank you. We'll go next to Jaskaran Sandhu, please.
Good morning, Jaskaran Sandhu from Boz News. We just heard today that India is targeting, using the terminology I'll share, the South Asian diaspora To be more specific, is the main target of transnational repression or foreign interference and organized crime, including what we just heard, extortions, actually the Sikh Canadian community?
So yes, I mean, it is targeting the South Asian community, but what we've seen is there's specific targeting of pro-Khalistan elements in Canada, or members of the pro-Khalistan movement.
And just for the follow-up, but we're talking about extortions, organized crime being used. We've within the community have seen that folks have been targeted in these incidents are not just people that are linked to the Khalistan movement or the Sikh self-determination movement. Are you able to share that the transnational repression occurring right now is going beyond just Sikhs connected to the Khalistan movement in some shape or form?
So just in order to preserve the integrity of the investigations that are being conducted by our police of jurisdiction partners, I won't be providing any further details in regards to the specificity of those investigations. But what we've seen is from an RCMP perspective is the use of organized crime elements. And I will say and it's been publicly attributed and claimed by one organized crime group in particular, which is the Bishnoi group. So that's what we're seeing here in Canada. And we believe that group is connected to agents of the government of India.
Thank you. Pour notre prochaine question, Mélanie Marquis, s'il vous plaît. Mélanie? Okay, we'll go next to Samira Hussain, please.
News. So just so I'm getting this straight, you're accusing the Indian government or agents of the Indian government of participating in homicide, extortion, intimidation, and coercion. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, at the beginning of this press conference, you said that these issues were preventing cooperation between India and Canada. How is levying these accusations in this kind of way going to create a more fruitful avenue for the two countries to be able to cooperate?
Well, I would say, Samira, the number one priority for us is public safety of Canadians across this country. And you've heard me in other forums where the relationships with the National Investigation Agency has been ongoing. We've been to India for training sessions and workshops with them. They've been here. A relationship, you always have to build a relationship, and it's not because we're here in front of the cameras today that we're not going to keep working at building those relationships, because quite frankly, what they want and we want is the exact same thing, is safety for Canadians across the country and safety for their own citizens within their respective country.
Yeah. So as the commissioner indicated, I mean, we've been working for years with our law enforcement counterparts in India on the violent extremism issue, both in Canada and India. Most recently, we've attempted to engage with our law enforcement partners to discuss that issue, but also to present the concerning evidence that we've uncovered through our investigations, which we've talked about today, but those attempts were unsuccessful. The commissioner mentioned the Deputy Commissioner of Federal Policing's meeting over the weekend with Government of India officials. The outcome of that meeting was not what we had hoped. So coupled with the significant threat to public safety, why we're here today as a result of those unsuccessful attempts. We are open and would like to continue to work with our law enforcement partners in India, and we urge them to take us up on our offer.
Just to follow up, I guess I'm wondering, why was this press conference happening today now? I mean, it's Thanksgiving holiday in Canada. Why was this all coming out now?
Thank you, Samir. It's all, we've been working on this for quite some time, and the meeting that took place October 12th we did not meet the objectives that we wanted to make sure that we could collaborate and work together and ensure a safer Canada for our citizens. And we felt it was important, based on our investigations, what we're seeing, and the lack of collaboration, is to come out and make sure that we inform the Canadian public of what we're seeing and asking their assistance if they see anything or feel anything.
We'll go next to Katie Nicholson, please.
Hi there. I'm wondering if you could clarify for us how many individuals you have specifically had to warn in Canada of potential threats as a result of these investigations.
So since September 2023, 12, 13?
At least a dozen.
At least a dozen. So when you factor that in, that we're in October 24, that's quite a significant number of 13 people for duty to warn.
And some of them are apologies, some of those receive multiple threats. So in totality, it's probably higher than 12 or 13. And we've had some still very recently in the last few weeks. Therefore, the harm and the threats have continued.
And what is the nature of these threats, and where are these individuals located in Canada? How many provinces and territories are we talking about?
We've seen threats across Canada. When there is a credible imminent threat to an individual's life, or there's a threat of serious bodily harm, it is the police's duty to inform those individuals. For privacy reasons and for the security of these individuals, I won't provide further details at this time.
We'll go next to Laura Dillon-Kane, please. Okay, we'll go to Martina, please.
Hi, thanks so much. This is Martina Stevis-Ridneff with the New York Times. Just a couple of specific questions regarding the Indian diplomats that are at question today. First of all, can you please clarify if these individuals have been expelled by Canada or if the Indian government has recalled them on the record? Additionally, can you say if these individuals have now left the country, and whether, as people of interest in your investigations, they would have been protected by their diplomatic immunity and therefore not participated in interviews or potential other, collaboration with the investigative authorities in Canada? I'm talking specifically about the diplomats today.
Thanks, Laura. The question with expulsion, that would be best responded by our Government Affairs Canada, who are looking after that aspect. We are looking purely from a law enforcement perspective. There has been some conversations in the past about lifting the immunity for these individuals so that we can interview them, and we were not successful in doing so.
Sorry, and just to clarify, are you aware whether these individuals are still in the country? And just to go back to colleagues' questions about your efforts to engage the Indian authorities, it sounds like the latest was over the weekend, and you said that you did not get the collaboration you hoped for or had hoped you would get from them. Can you just specify what you did get in your meetings from the Indian authorities that was disappointing? And again, if you could answer whether these people have left the country.
Yeah, so if they've left the country, again, that would be something to our Government Affairs Canada. I'm not aware where they're at with the process. What I can say is that our Deputy Commissioner of Federal Policing, who oversees national security, did try to get a hold of his counterparts to no success. And we felt that the second best option is to join our National Security Intelligence Advisor to the Prime Minister, as well as Deputy Minister of Government Affairs, and a meeting with government officials from India, in which our Deputy Commissioner plainly laid out the evidence that we had on some of the cases forward, and seeking the assistance and trying to improve and work on a collaboration with them. And again, that did not result in the outcomes that were expected, and this is why we're here today.
We have time for one last question, so we'll go to Mercedes Stevenson, please.
My question, I'm wondering what you can tell us about the organized crime groups that were involved here. I know in the past Iran has tried to recruit the Hells Angels. Was this a particular organized crime group? Were there multiple organized crime groups? What level and sophistication of organized crime have you seen? And to what degree has this been integrated into your murder and violent extortion investigations?
Thank you, Mercedes. As there's ongoing investigations and prosecutions, I won't go into a lot of detail, but what I can tell you is that we've seen a number of criminal organizations that have been involved in the various criminal activity. I mentioned previously the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, which is a gang that's involved in extortions and narcotics originating from India. That group has claimed responsibility for certain activity that was in the public, but there's also other groups which I will refrain from naming at this time.
Follow-up, Mercedes?
Thanks. Yeah, in terms of a follow-up, how would you characterize the significance of this threat to national security that you allegedly had people working in an embassy under the cover of diplomatic immunity that are linked to murders and violent acts in Canada? And what happens when India tries to send more people here? What involvement will there be in terms of the RCMP in clearing who those individuals are and whether or not you are satisfied they're not connected to RAW?
So Mercedes, it's extremely concerning from my part, from what I've seen from last couple of years. I think that the RCMP, along with its security partners such as CSIS and CSE and CBSA and everyone you can think of, GAC, we must ensure that we continue to work together, make sure that the inflow of information is shared with the people who need the information. And we can't, I'm not quite sure of all the diplomatic rules as to can you prevent someone from coming into the country if you have something on the individual. That would be better asked to the Government Affairs of Canada of if there is a vetting process when someone comes to Canada as an ambassador or high commissioner. I'm completely unaware of the process for that.
Thank you.
If I may add, it is extremely concerning. I mean, Indian diplomats and consular officials are here to protect the interests of their nationals that are based in Canada and their country's national interests as well, and not to be part of criminal activity or intimidation or coercion of these individuals. So we take that very seriously. That is, without a doubt, a contravention of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, but also it goes against Canada's values as a society.
Voilà qui met fin à la séance d'information aujourd'hui. Merci de votre participation. Si vous avez d'autres questions, vous voulez communiquer avec les relations avec les médias à la GRC. This brings an end to today's briefing session. Thank you for your participation. If you do have additional questions, please contact the RCMP Media Relations. Merci beaucoup. Bonne journée.
Merci, everyone. Are we off?
We'll have right.
Y a des questions ou d'autres questions? Non. Y a des questions? No? Y a pas d'autres questions? Oh. Yeah, but don't use the mic. You can come here. Don't use the microphone.
Well, just to clarify.
Yeah, come.
You mentioned, we left that on camera. Is that okay?
Well, we finished the press conference, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned